Good morning, everyone. We trust you are well. Today is episode 5, and we have my mama, the bonus mama, Miss Briggette Johnson.
Hello.
Yes.
This is my husband Elroy's mama, and to say what a blessing she has been in my life alone is you can't even find the words. And this is the first time that they've met her, and so they.
But she has taken me to church
Yes.
already.
So,
So a couple months ago over the phone. So she is, we have already decided that we're adopting her as our mama.
so
Our
Famous
bonus mama.
We all feel it.
So today we're going to be talking about perspectives, and
And how your perception is, everything, and it determines, the path that you see, the view that you
Right.
have,
Yeah,
places you go.
yeah, that is true. And I would start with, for me, I would start with growing up, knowing about God.
Mm-hmm.
Went to church, and everything. And so I knew God existed. I knew He was real. But what I didn't realize was that He would do those things for me because of the things that I had done in my past. So I thought God was God. I'm not doubting what He can do. But what I doubted was that He would do it for me, that I was worthy.
that He could still use you.
Right. Just do the simplest things. I just didn't think I was worthy. I think I thought you had to be special to get that
Yeah.
because I didn't understand the word God.
I didn't think you deserved it.
I didn't think I deserved it. And that was my perception. That was my opinion of myself. Instead of seeking God back then to realize that there's nothing I can do to receive His grace and His salvation. It's just something you get when you believe. It's a free gift, But it took me a long time to understand that.
That's good.
Yeah.
And how many of us, whether it be, God, definitely a big one, or, our jobs, or
Yes.
our spouse,
Yes.
or, maybe our kids,
Yeah.
or achieving whatever we're trying to go after, how many of us feel unworthy of having it because we feel like we aren't special enough, we
Yeah.
aren't qualified enough.
Oh,
we
it
aren't-
trickled down into relationships.
Oh.
It trickled down into what I felt, how I felt myself as a mother. You know what I'm saying? People would say, "You're such a good mom," but every mistake I knew I made, I couldn't receive it. I couldn't receive it. So, like I said, when you form an opinion about yourself, instead of seeking what God said, who God says you are, it does affect the direction you go in. And I kept hitting a wall. Everywhere I went that Bridget wanted to go, I would hit a wall. And the voids that I experienced eventually got me to the place where I had to seek God for myself, And I say God, and like you said, it's different areas, but if it does not, for me, if it does not start with God, nothing else works.
Yeah.
For me, I can't talk for anybody else, but for me, I realized that if it doesn't start with God, I couldn't fall in love until I fell in love with God. I could have relationships, well, what we called relationships, but it wasn't a real relationship. But as soon as I was introduced to God and I met the end of myself, because that's when we really see God. When we reach the end of ourselves, that's when you see Him. But as long as I'm doing me, I don't see Him. You know what I'm saying? Perception once again, or perspective. So once I reached the end of myself and I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of the way I was doing things, that's when I met God. That's when I established a relationship slowly with God. And then He started giving me the desires of my heart, which was a husband, because I didn't get married until after I was 40.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had 3 kids first. That's what I'm saying.
Right or wrong way.
Right,
Right or wrong way.
But knowing, what I know, and it took me that long to get me together. And when I tell you He brought me my mate, the one that I never expected, would not have chosen him for myself. You know what I'm saying? Because of what my mindset used to be. But now, the love of my life, But God had to work on me, which means I had to allow Him
Right.
to do the work and I had to do my portion of the work, you know. But it's all in the perception, and if you cannot get to a point where you be honest with yourself about yourself, you're gonna continue to spiral into other things until you just get tired.
And how much of that leads to pushing away the people who do care about you?
Yes, because I remember I call her my sister, Diane Parker, and she's a pastor. So when I knew I was going the other way, I'm like, I didn't want to be around her. Because I feel like God gonna tell her what I did. You know?
She got the secret tune right
Yeah,
there.
that's what I felt. She's like, I didn't know any of that. But that's what we do. You know what I'm saying? When our perception or when our perspective about something is cloudy, you know what I'm saying? We're not seeing clearly. That enemy will come in and have us thinking all sorts of crazy things, you know. And I stayed away from her for months at a time. And she just embraced me anyway. When I finally was like, well, this is what I was doing, and she's like, come give me a hug, you know.
You were creating in your mind what she
mind.
was thinking, when in reality, it wasn't anywhere close to what
Nowhere
she was
close to
thinking.
it.
But those lies were telling you, like, I'm because I've done this and I've done that, and she's thinking this. I mean, we all do that.
Yeah, and the whole time, if I'd have just realized that if she is true in her walk, she ain't gonna judge me.
Right.
You know, but that's not where my mind was, you know. And I knew she was true in her walk, but because I didn't allow myself to focus on the real thing and not the, you know, it was crazy.
So is that why you think that perception is everything? Because, and you tell me, because I know it's really important, you know, and it's on your heart. When you have your perception, you could be thinking kind of negative, or, you know, she won't accept me, she won't, you know, she'll think less of me, she won't love me for who I really am, and so therefore I'm going to steer clear of her, and, you know, put on this facade, put some distance in between us so that she can't see the real me, so there's no chance for her to reject me.
But the truth was,
or you have this other perception, right, of what the truth was.
the truth was, there were so many valuable nuggets I could have gained in my experience. So instead of walking through the dark side that I was walking through, if I'd have just been honest with her as the friend and the accountability partner that she was for me, I wouldn't have had to stay there as long as I did.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Being out in the wilderness.
Right. So I put myself in the wilderness and I decided to stay there instead of allow who I called the person that we're gonna be honest with each other and we're gonna, you know. And if I'd have just did that, then I'd have came out sooner. And then I'd have probably headed that way instead of staying stuck that way, you know.
And using and allowing who God placed in your life at the time.
Yeah, that was divine appointment. And I knew it was divine.
Like, here, baby, I got you someone that's going to help you, but you're going to
And
have to
she really-
let the guard down.
Yeah.
So how do you choose? You know, I feel like so often in my life, you know, the thoughts in my head, the conversation going on, you know, is he or she's not going to like me, or I'm not going to get this job, you know, and I just am assuming. And so my perception is that things are going to end up negatively. So how do you make the choice? How do you even become aware of what's going on up here?
What I had to learn, and it was very hard, 'cause like I said, I'm not a confrontational person. So if I feel like something ain't gonna work out, I won't even go that way, you know. But what I had to learn is if you don't try, you don't know.
Right.
So what if you get there and it doesn't work out? You no longer have to wonder if it would have worked out. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be able to be vulnerable and put ourselves out. And I'm preaching to myself now. You know? I'm speaking to myself now, but we have to get to a point where we trust God so much in a moment or in a situation that even if I wrote a poem that says not if what, but what if. Because we say, we say what if all the time. That's the question. Well, what if they don't like me? What if they don't do this or that? But what if? Oh, if what? If what they don't do is like me, I'm still gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? So
That's good.
it's just a matter of allowing yourself to be okay with rejection. And I'm not saying lay down and be a doormat for anybody, but if you're wanting to do something, and I applaud people who go for it. Because I'm not a go for it person, not yet, but I'm claiming it. But this girl right here goes for it,
Yeah.
you know. And I applaud that because we have so many regrets when we don't try. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, if it's a job you want, and of course your mind is going to tell you, because that enemy doesn't want you to have that, because
Right.
that means you're going to go to your next level and your next level, and your next level.
Right.
But when we say, you know what, even if I get there and it doesn't work out, at least I tried.
Yeah.
And there's a satisfaction that comes with knowing you tried anyway, you did it anyway.
Well, the answer is always no if you don't ask.
That's right.
It's never
Yeah,
going
that's
to
good.
work out if you don't try for it.
Right.
And I've also found in my personal experience is that if I go for it, no matter what the outcome is, that I am a step closer to the direction that God wants me to go in. So a lot of
Right.
times, like I'll take steps in a direction. Sometimes you're even uncertain, like, okay, God, like I feel like this is where you're taking me, or this is where I'm supposed to go. And as long as you're stepping, then God can move you, can direct you.
Right.
So even in those rejections, even in those no's, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because you ultimately find yourself, He's guiding you in a direction. So if you get a no here, then He might direct you over here to where you're eventually.
And what did you learn in all of that to
Exactly.
get you to that next?
Yeah,
And he can't bless the steps that you don't take.
exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know, so like in my life, you know, for so long I've held myself back, having the perception that they're just gonna reject me anyways.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not gonna get the job anyways. They're gonna tell me no, you know, it's not gonna happen like I want it. I don't know the details of how it's even gonna happen, and because I don't know the details, I'm not even gonna try. You know, but if we stay right where we are and we're not moving,
You can't do anything. You
how
can't
can
move you.
anything change?
I say the same thing because I'm like, if you're sitting on the couch praying, God, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And all you do is sit there
Yeah.
asking the question,
Right.
well, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
And I mean, how many times I've made a step in that uncertainty of like, okay, well, I have to do something. I have to act. And in
Right.
that action, then He can move.
Right.
There's a
That's
story in the Bible where these two soldiers were sitting at the gate, and doom and gloom had hit, and they said, why sit here and die? Why sit here and wait to die? You know what I'm saying? And that's the same thing. We can sit here and wait for them to come and kill us, or we can try to survive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You know?
Action.
Action.
And even
Yeah.
more than surviving, thriving.
Thriving.
Because there's such a difference
Yes.
between, you know, surviving,
Yes.
yes, in some seasons, some days, some hours, like we
Yeah.
just need to survive.
Yeah.
You know, but then, you know, at the end of our life, we all really want to, all we want to do is thrive. We want to be as happy as we can, make a difference, help some people, have, you know, a nice, loving family.
Right.
We all want the same things.
That's right. But we got to realize that there's order. There's an order to how God works.
Yeah.
And the blueprint is in the book. For me, because I know there's different people who have different beliefs. But for me, that book is a blueprint on how to live and how to get to where you need to go. You know, so if you follow, and you don't. I tell my kids, I used to tell my kids this all the time. How can you stand on a promise you don't even know exists? You got to seek Him for yourself.
Yeah.
And that was me. I'm sitting up here. I remember I was in church, and the pastor was like, well, we're going to talk about Joseph, but y'all know the story about Joseph, so I'm going to go on and get to it. I'm like,
No.
no, go back. But it taught me to seek.
Yeah.
Because that's what
Yeah.
seeking is.
Yeah.
I could have sat there and he could have told the story and I believed whatever he said.
Right.
The seeking is for yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then I realized
Seeking
there's
first.
there's a promise here, there's a promise there. And I'm sitting up here worried about stuff that God said and done told me. I'm
Right.
promising if you do this, I'll do this. He never says I'm gonna do this, then you do that. It's always if you do this, then I'll do this. And then I learned how to stand on that. Even when it looked like, pardon my French, all hell was breaking loose. I remembered the promise and I said, I'm standing on this, I'm not gonna budge from it. And eventually it got to the way it was supposed to be. But I had to walk through it to seek Him. I couldn't not experience that and say I saw Him. You know what I'm saying? So even in the bad times, we got to see the good in the bad.
Right.
Because it's serving a purpose for your pain.
Right.
We've all heard that there's a purpose for your pain, and it sounds crazy. What purpose is there for my pain? Why would God allow me to go through all of this?
Right.
So you know who He is, because obviously you ain't figured that out yet,
Right.
because He puts no more on us than we can bear. He's gonna give us exactly what we need. So who am I to say, well, I already know enough about God, but I'm still walking through something? That means there's something I need to learn.
Right.
And that's how you become transparent. If you pay attention to what He's doing, I learned that I could sit up here and be mad at my husband, and I say, Lord, you need to deal with him. But really, I need to say, Lord, show me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
If there's anything I'm doing wrong, show me, because I know you'll deal with him. Same way you're dealing with me.
Right.
But we have to be willing to be chastised, in the areas that we think we're all right in and we're not.
Yeah.
I love the analogy and just the visual that, we are, like pottery. Like, just change us, mold us, shape us, and we will be shaped and molded in different ways in different seasons.
Yeah.
But we're not, when a pot isn't just a pot, it doesn't start out that way.
Right. It starts out as clay.
Right. And it's gotta be, worked and, stretched and.
And Briggette was the pot that was already made. I had to be broken.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? And we fear getting to the place of brokenness.
Yeah.
We feel like that's a bad thing. But when you're so full of yourself, that's the only way to overcome it. You gotta allow yourself to be broken so God will remake you in the way that you should be. And that's biblical. When he went down to the potter's house, that whole story. And I used to run from the brokenness because I was so afraid of it. It was so uncomfortable. I don't like being uncomfortable.
Who does?
Yeah. But I mean, some people have already realized that I've got to go through this, so let me just go through this. I didn't want to,
Right.
But once I got through my brokenness, I saw all the potential. Before I was broken, couldn't see no potential. It was what it was. But in the brokenness, there's so much potential to be remade in a way, and that, to me, that's being reborn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you're reborn, you're made differently and more like Jesus and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think there are so many of us who walk around like we're the finished piece. We are already set. We are already, looking good. We're already perfectly molded. You know what I
and that's
mean?
just not the case.
We're always becoming.
Yeah.
Always becoming. And allowing yourself to do that. Really allowing yourself, knowing, no matter what you did yesterday, if today is the day that you decide to change, then that's what it takes.
And it's good.
Yeah, and
It's
it's a
never
good,
too late. As long as you're breathing, it's
Yeah.
never
It's
too
never
late.
too
Right.
late.
Yeah.
And we're always being shaped and molded, whether it's us or like Oprah and Rachel Hollis, they're like they haven't arrived any more than we've arrived.
Right,
Like we're
right.
all
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
in this
their
together.
their perception of themselves
uh,
is probably slightly different than ours. So they may walk in a confidence of what they can achieve that I don't have, but it doesn't mean I can't achieve it.
Oh yeah.
I just-
that's good.
I just don't think I'm there.
Um,
I remember going into a 5-star hotel with a friend of mine. We were gonna drink some wine and listen to some jazz in the foyer.
Sounds like a
And
good night.
walked in there, and I felt like I didn't belong. I was living in low-income housing, You got all these rich people sipping, I'm hoping I can afford one glass of wine,
Right.
And I felt like I did not belong. And then I went back probably like a year and a half later, cause she's like, girl, just come on, it's gonna be good. It was like a Christmas thing when they were playing Christmas music. And by the time God had worked with me, I realized I do belong here.
Yeah.
I have a right to be here just like anybody else has a right to be here.
Once you were shaped and molded
Yeah.
and worked on a
Yeah,
little bit.
and it was just a little bit. I still had a long way to go.
We all
But
do.
I finally saw I had a different perception. My opinion about myself had changed because I saw my surroundings and believed the surroundings instead of, like I said, with God. Once we realize that we are who God says we are, it'll have you walking in a confidence
Yes.
that you can do all things, you know. And that doesn't mean if I can't sing, I'm gonna sing. But the things that need to be done, He's equipped us
Right.
to do them.
Yeah.
You know, so.
So what are the things that you do, you know, maybe each day, each week, like what does it look like, you know, because having a right perspective, you know, that's not, you don't just get, you know, a right
Right.
perspective and
Right.
like period, the end, that's, you know.
I was always told, because I did a radio station with Diane, and I would always get feedback, you are so transparent. You have no problem sharing what you've been through, but I could do it because I was delivered from it. We don't talk about things we're not delivered from.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If we still sneaking, I'm not bringing that up.
Mhm.
You know, but once I was delivered from it, I was able to do it. So my transparency, my willingness to be transparent, is my biggest thing. That's something that God gave me to use, to the point where I had a dream about it, you know.
Mm.
It was a dream with a book, and the book was on the board, and everybody's reading the board, but they can't see the book because the book is transparent. But I can see the book, you know. And so I'm like, they're saying it wrong, they're not saying it right. And when I came out of the dream, the revelation was, I need you to be transparent. That's the only way you can do this, is to share what you do. I'm not saying talk about your past. I'm not talking about living in the past. But we do what we do by our testimony. We overcome by our testimony. So if I can be transparent, I can help myself stay focused and grounded, because that's what that does. It keeps me grounded, remembering what God did for me. So every morning when I wake up, I go to my Bible app, because I really don't do the book Bible. I go to my Bible app, I read my scripture for the day, and I try to read something that's attached to it, because usually they'll give you some type of inspiration, you know, that kind of thing. I don't read the Bible all day, you know. I had my season of eating spiritual nourishment, and I saw it every day. I couldn't wait to get in that word and learn, you know. But now I know that if I feed myself, if I feed my spirit will be strong enough to defend me. And that's something that's important, because a lot of people that I know won't touch the word. They don't, you know, that's not a part of their daily routine. And then they wonder why they can't fight the good fight, you know. And you have to feed your spirit so that it will rise up in you to defend you, you know. So that's something that I do on a regular. And I feel bad if I get up and start doing something else first. You know, if I have to jump up, I'm like, oh Lord, I'm so sorry, you know. And then I go and I do it anyway. And I don't get a lot of it. And I also talk to God. I talk to Him just like I talk to God, you know. If I get a green light or a parking lot, a parking space, thank you, Lord. And people say that's crazy.
No?
I do it
Thanks for
too.
everything, you know. And I'm not blasting it. I'm just in my own, you know, my own space. Thank you, Father, you know. And that's the relationship. And I realize that the relationship is not just waking up saying thank you and then going to bed saying good night. If you have a man and all you did was say good morning and good night, that relationship probably ain't gonna go nowhere. And God wants the same thing. So I try to give God the same thing that I give my husband, if not more, you know. So that's how I condition myself to just stay grounded in my faith. And like I said, it wasn't easy. It was plenty of nights crying, you know what I'm saying? Tossed to and fro, and I can't tell you how many times I had to get on the altar and say, I surrender my pride. I give up my pride. The whole time I'm thinking, well, I'm telling you I'm giving it up, but I was still doing the same thing.
The little pinky
on there.
The little pinky was
Still doing the same stuff, and then I realized, okay, there's something I gotta change. You
That's
know.
what we were talking
Yeah.
about,
There's
you know,
something
right
I gotta
before we started this, was that so often in our lives, we're praying for God to do something and to work, but then it's like, I still have my hands on it.
Yeah.
Alright,
Like,
what
we
do you
stepped
do?
over here, but we just like had to still hold on to it.
and now I'm not looking. And I'm
Yeah, thinking the words are enough.
Uh-huh.
And so many times we do that in life. We think just because we said it, That's good enough. We don't put forth the action that comes behind it, you know. That's something I learned with God. You got to put forth the effort.
So in that situation, what does surrender really look like for you?
Ooh,
That's a
surrender.
great question.
Surrender for me was being fully persuaded that God had me, no matter what, to the death. To the death, and that's dark, but that's where I had to go. And you know, like we were talking about my son, and I had to get to the point where if God decided that it was time for him, or if he decided it was the time for him to leave, I had to be fully persuaded that God was still God, and it was gonna be all right, you know. And that was total surrender, because I was still so scared of certain little things. I was still so nervous about certain little things. But when I allowed myself to believe God, to the point where if all that was left was me, or if I had to be gone, then I have to be okay with that. And it took for me to understand transitioning. You know, I hate to go this dark, but that was just my story, because I was always afraid of death, you know, so to speak. And so once I realized what transitioning was, then that helped me be fully persuaded, because now I'm not afraid of the worst case scenario. And that's the whole thing. We will trust God until the worst case scenario comes up, and now we got a problem with God.
Right.
And we mad because he allowed certain things to happen,
Right.
you know. Instead, I had to just get to that point, and that went into every other area of my life. But it started with me just trusting him in the worst possible scenario.
And speaking of death, because we were just speaking of this yesterday, about when someone passes and our perspective, and some people can be mad about them leaving us, or mad that God took them, or you know, the anger or that type of, but the perspective of if they believed, or if they, you know, when they close their eyes and they pass, and when they open their eyes,
They on the other side.
They on
And
the
they
other
think
side.
about us. They're where we're trying to get to. You know what I'm saying? By doing the things that we're supposed to do. So that whole grieving and mourning process, that's ours.
That's for us, that's for those of us who are left behind.
But we, in our minds, we want to think that they're sad because they had to go. They might have been sad on this side before they left.
Yeah.
But trust, when they got over there, it's like, oh, good. You know, if you believe what the word says about it, you know.
but all perspective.
All perspective.
Yeah.
It's all perspective. And I decided to, Diane, she told me, she taught me, she said, Bridget, you have to learn how to change the channel in your mind. She said, when you watch TV and you flip through the channels, if you don't want to watch something, what do? You change the channel. And that's what we have to do in our mind. And we change the channel by focusing on something else. It could be something the enemy's dangling because he wants you to be worried about something. And if you pick up a book and just start reading a couple of the pages, you change the channel. And the word says if you resist the devil, he'll flee. So, you know, if you believe that, then just change your focus on something else long enough for it to pass. And before you know it, you're like, I wasn't thinking about that anymore. And then when you realize and you learn what to do, you'll keep doing it, you know, to the point where it's just second nature for you to do
Whatever
it.
works for you, which
Whatever
could be,
works for you.
yeah.
You were talking about earlier before we started this, about the glass half full and half empty, and how in your prosperous season you were able to look at the glass as half full, and in the opposite season you would always look at it as half empty. Lord, I cannot get those words out. But so now, do you find yourself, because of this mindset shift, do you find yourself that even in the hard seasons that you can look and see the glass half full?
I'll use my son as an example again. The one that struggles. I see his glass all the way full. He doesn't see his glass full, but I see it full. I see where he's headed. I see the potential he has to be great, but until he sees it,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing I can do about that. But I see potential in everybody now. I really do. Even the person that has done the worst thing, in my heart, I feel like as long as there's breath in your body, you can change. Now you have to decide it. God's not gonna make you change. So that's the part that's not sure what's gonna happen. But I see potential in everybody.
Yeah.
Whereas before, what you want? I know you got a secret agenda, you know, that used to be I didn't trust anybody. But now I do. I see potential in the worst of people with their actions. And I know that they could if they just had the right person to guide them, because God uses us. You know, they need God, but God uses us to do His work. So if the right person just gets in their paths, instead of looking down on them because of what they've done, you know, just try to feed and speak life back into them. I think anybody can change.
It's good that you say that, because when I was in court, not for myself, but I was a supporting, and everyone was in there, and the cases were being called, and you know, the judge saying, you know, this offense and how many of this offense and you're back, and I was just looking around the room, and I felt that exact thing of just the potential, and I could see the people not seeing that own potential in themselves, and I was just like, if you were surrounded by the right soil, the right people, I mean, the people that just own these habits and patterns,
Right.
and not believing of anything better than the habits and patterns of what was continuing to keep them there, and I was just surrounded by people, and I was just, it was heartbreaking because of how much potential is never reached, either comfortable with who they are around, or feeling less than because of a mistake and they don't want to surround themselves with better. But it was just, I felt so bad of wanting to pull out the potential and just talk to them, and like, you can
Sow a seed.
Yeah, like I wanted to just, can I get up there and be a judge for a minute? Can I
just preach for a moment?
Just for a moment. I'll give it back. Can this be a pulpit real quick?
And we're all like that. We all, you know,
Just want to help.
right, and we all have potential that we haven't
Tapped into.
Right, that we haven't tapped into. You know, once again, it's not like you reach your potential and it's like, okay, you're done. Except for, you know, the only time that you're done is when you're going to heaven. You know what I mean? You're out. You're out. But if you're still breathing, if you woke up today, you still have potential.
Yeah.
And it's so good
And
about believing it for yourself.
That's what I didn't. That's the part I didn't get. That I had an opportunity, even in the worst of circumstances, living, you know, on welfare in a low-income housing with 3 kids, no daddy around, you know, I still had opportunity, and all I had to do was take it. But I didn't, because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel like I could, because my perception was that I'll never be anything more than what I am now. This is it. I even thought, because I had 3 kids, that I wasn't going to ever get married, because who's going to want a woman with 3 kids? You know, I believed that, to the point where I figured at some point I would probably just, after the kids are gone, maybe I'll just, you know, and it sounds funny to say, but really like be a nun, because I love the Lord. So I figured I'll marry God, you know, since there's no man that's going to want me because I'm all used up, you know, because that's what I told myself. And then this wonderful man comes into my life, and just, you know, God used him to love on me. God uses me to love on him. Yeah.
So is that how things changed, or did you change first? Did you change your perception
I had to change
first?
Yeah.
So how did that, I mean, I can't imagine living in low-income housing. You have 3 kids. You're a single mom, which single moms are freaking amazing. You know, but that was your reality.
Right.
So how did you change your reality in your mind?
Well, but once again, Pastor Diane Parker, I was working with a lady. She said, can you come to this meeting? She's starting these meetings, and this lady was a recovering alcoholic, you know. So I was like, well, I can go to support you, but I don't need no meeting.
Right.
But I'll go to support you.
I don't need anything. You're messed up.
I'm not realizing that was a divine appointment. Because the first time I went, I'm sitting there thinking, ain't nothing wrong with me, you know, but I'll be here for you. Next thing you know, 10 years later, I'm still going to her classes.
Wow.
And God dissected me little by little.
Perspective.
Yeah, dissected me even to the point where I bought my daughter a Barbie townhouse. She didn't even ask for it. I bought it because and my daddy told me he was gonna buy one and never did. That affected me as a little child because I'm waiting for it to come to the house. He says he's on his way, never comes, you know, all that stuff. And we don't think that kind of stuff stays with you, but it does, you know. And dissected all of that, you know. My boyfriend, my father passed away. I made my boyfriend my daddy. Male-wise, that wasn't fair. You know, it wasn't fair that he had to have that. I was trying to give him the responsibility of taking care of me, and we in high school. You know what I'm saying? But these are the things that I had done, and they were dissected, and God used her to prepare me for my husband. Because when I tell you everything I learned in that class, I had to exercise it with him. In order for our relationship to stay, because I was one of those people, you can't talk to me any kind of way, you can't tell me anything. I know everything. You know, I either was insecure, but that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
You think you know everything, but you're insecure, you know. So when he came along, and he was very upfront, as Shayna can tell you, so he would tell me the truth. And
Don't you love people who tell you the truth?
oh, girl, I have, and so many times I said, let me call you back. But every time I went in that closet and talked to God, God said, is he telling you anything? And when I got real with myself, I said, no, you just don't want to hear it, Bridget. I'm like, you're right. And so that's what got me to the point, you know, that I am today. But it does take for you to love and I didn't realize I was loving myself enough. But you have to love yourself enough to go through the process. You know? Invest in yourself.
To take the constructive criticism.
Yes. Because like I said at first, but if I hadn't gone through those classes to learn how to look at myself, oh, we wouldn't have made it past the first one.
You talking to me like that?
Oh,
No,
here we
goodbye.
go. You know, that was my attitude. Nobody's gonna tell me and da 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 da. And my friend told me, she said, because I complained to her, I said, I feel like he's trying to tell me what to do. And she says, Bridget, do you think he loves you? I said, I know he loves me. He shows me he loves me. She said, well, why do you think he would try to do anything like that? She said, change your right love. The book, Love Book. Remember that book? I think it was called The Love Book or something. It was based on a movie, Love There. And in the book it says, we have a room inside of our minds. And in that room is everything that we've been disappointed about, everything we've been angry about, anyone who's ever hurt us, it's all written on the wall. And what you have to do is you have to do right love over all of that. Inside of us. We have to right love over every offense we've had to endure, all that. And once I realized that, what that did was made me realize he's not telling me what to do. He's showing me the right way to do it. Because he loves me enough not to let me walk in that lie anymore. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I've heard from this amazing story that you shared, which thank you by the way, I've heard 5 P's. People, you were around your friend who was a pastor, and you know, the man who came into your life, you know, the people, the position, you put yourself, by going to that class,
Yeah.
you put yourself in the position, even though you didn't think,
Didn't know it.
But it was more than just, an AA meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Perspective. It was.
right. So people, position, process, like you were talking about, perspective, and then potential. Oh,
That's
good.
amazing.
The 5 P's there.
5 P's.
Good. I love it. I love it. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
and we on episode 5.
Oh, this was
Thank
so
you for
good.
having me.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yes, but I have to say, we are in, I mean, I know there's been a lot of little noise, but we're in this beautiful hotel, and I don't know what time it is now, but it probably started about 8:30 in the morning.
It was real quiet, but
It was quiet. But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for being
Yes.
Any
here.
final words or anything that you would like to?
If I had to give advice or a word of encouragement, I would just say love yourself enough.
Yeah.
Love yourself enough.
That was the thing that I just gathered from all of that you loved yourself enough.
We try to love
First.
other people first,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
more than we love. We say we love ourselves, but that's one of those things where we those words, but action. Love is an action word.
Yeah.
Love is not what you feel, it's what you do. So love yourself enough, forgive yourself for whatever it is you've done, because you can't go back and change it. All you can do is move forward and start now. So that's what I would say.
That's so good.
That's good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the 5th episode of I Am Always Her. Thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself, to pour into yourself. I hope you were inspired and encouraged in some way. And until next time.
And like and comment and subscribe to our channel.
Yay. That was fun.